elements you have to think about when you think outside of the box. And I remember about 2-3 years ago, I was serving at East at that time after teaching PIM program for a while. And I thought to myself, I've been, coming to seminary and seeing Christians all the time, and I go to church, see Christians all the time, and all my friends are Christians. And how am I going to share the Great Commissions with the people that around me? So my struggle actually prompted me to ask a few questions that are very dear to my heart. And I think one thing is, how am I going to live out the Great Commission in the midst of my Christian bubbles? And besides that, what does preaching mean? Sharing God's truth means? Is it only meaning that we can do it in a church setting? So these questions came to my mind. How can I live out the Great Commissions, right? How can I bring God's truth even to both church people and even non-church people? And what is preaching beyond the pulpit actually means? And as I was thinking through all this, and there are different sets of questions came to my mind, which is here. How can I think outside of the box? Who are the people that God want me to reach? And what are their needs and their interests? And how did God make me? And what kind of gifts or talents and interests that God has given me that I can use it for His glory? So it took me quite some time. Actually, I have an interest in beauty, makeup, and crafts. And to be honest with you, for the longest time, I really think that was kind of vain, and didn't think that was something that is godly. But God really changed my perspective. And because of that journey of praying and asking God, how am I going to use it? I asked Him, I can't do it. I don't know how. You have to show me. And amazingly, God just showed different opportunities that happening. That I would use craft to teach at different avenue, like in churches, in Bible study and women's group, and ESL classes at church. So I would use the craft as a way for me to share the gospel with people around me. The hook itself is just the crafts, but it opens up opportunity and platform for me to share His word and His gospel. Another thing is He even allow me to, because of craft, I can use it to share with the different language with Japanese group. There's one time when I was traveling, there was a M group, and I was able to meet up with some of the M people and just use that to share with them. And besides that, how about makeover, fashion makeover, something that I'm really interested in. But how can I use that as a way to hook women that the true makeover is actually in Jesus Himself? So I preached a sermon, a message at the beginning, before I share the message of how to do the actual makeover, the physical makeover. I will share a spiritual makeover in Jesus. And besides that, makeup classes, how can we have the true makeover in Jesus? So I've been praying for months, and this actually God gave me an idea when I finally got it. And I'll share with you a little bit later. And then parenting workshop, and God just opening different opportunities for me to bridge something that from this world to something that can you also think outside of the box, that God has prepared for you, something installed for you in the future. How can we use our creativity to share God's truth to people that they may not even go to church, or even in other settings. So I'm going to walk with you these steps that in my journey, as I reflect, these are some of the steps that I've taken as I was preparing my message and my ideas. God gave me those ideas and stuff. Okay, so the first step is to scan the people around you. It's just like audience analysis, right? Scan the people around you. Now, there's nothing unholy about watching YouTube or understanding the culture, because the more we understand the culture, the more we can understand the people around us. So now, I'm not saying that you would watch then Korean dramas like non-stop, that you kind of disrupt your work, but I'm saying that this is we actually should observe the culture with moderations, with wisdom, right? So And a few things you can understand, trying to understand is what are some of the felt needs of the people around you, the interests, the values, beauty, marriage. To me, I try to understand the world and my interests, and so parenting, friendships, and what are the heart needs of these people. It could be the identity, self-worth, loneliness, unforgiven, why they spend so much time on certain things like beauty, or for example, or a reality show. Maybe it is one way for them to escape the true question in their heart, who they truly are, the self-worth, their identities. So observe and watch the culture through different media, social medias, movies, reality show. We need to exegete the culture as much as we exegete the text, the Bible. And that is one thing that we have to be in the world, but not of the world. So we have to learn the wisdom to understand our culture, our surroundings. Another thing is, what is your own interest? What is your interest, right? Some of you have musical talents like Muja, right? And how is that? Ask God this question: how am I going to use music together with sharing God's truth? And I know some of you, like Johanna, she loves to write. So, for her, she loves to read the news. And how can we bridge the current issues, the current things of this world with biblical truth? Maybe she can start writing articles to influence people. And some of you have artistic gifts, like Annie. She loves to draw, right? I would love to see her preach one day using her picture and sharing her heart, what God has spoken to her through her pictures. So these are all different things. And some of you like to take pictures, like Thomas, he's very good at taking pictures. Maybe use pictures, right, as a way to share the gospel or good news of God. So this question that will help you is, what kind of gifts, interests God has given you that you can give you a platform or excuse that you can speak to their needs. Even you don't have any, you can always learn something new. And I must tell you, all those craft workshops that I've been doing, none of them I came up with my own original idea. Basically, I just went on the website and I went to Pinterest, which is my favorite website, and I just look up anything that interests me and I start doing it. And I've been just doing it for my own interest until God said one day, use it for my glory. So God kind of changed my perspective around. Another thing you need to do is ask God how you're going to breach it. Even though you have a gifts, it doesn't mean you know automatically how to bridge it. And it's a very hard process, honestly. And I want to give you an example of the makeup workshop that I do. And I've been thinking for months, actually for years, I love doing makeup. So I've been asking God, how am I going to share a gospel message on my face? And to be honest with you, I've been relying on my own strength, thinking about the ideas. And for months, for longest time, I had no idea how to do it. But just one day, God just used, while I was doing my makeup, God just showed me the message. When I do the makeup on my face, that I see the gospel message on my face. And that was a wonderful experience. So what we did was like two circles, right? When God first created the world, the concealer, everything was good and perfect. And then we draw concealer on the cross. But because sin entered to the world, God needed to provide a solution for us. So he gave us his son Jesus down on the cross for us. And his blood cleansed our sins. So I put foundation on my face and covering all the blemishes on our face. So there are more details to this makeup tutorial, and actually I filmed it a few times. I use it in different settings, but I just amazed when I look back, all these ideas, none of them came from me, and God just show you if you have heart to ask him. So maybe now it's a question for you to ask God, how are you going to use the gifts that God has given you for his glory? Another thing is how to preach the truth to the world. What truths in the Bible that speak to that felt need and heart needs. And you can't talk about the Bible first when you run a workshop like that or on a platform like that. Sometimes you might need to ask God, how how to make it more creative, and how you can use this gifts that you have in the preaching class to craft a message creatively, because sometimes preaching to non-believers is very different, I find, and it has to be more trimmed down, especially in your biblical part of it. You might just want to use one verse and keep it very simple, and must be something that related to whatever you're teaching or whatever props that you're using. So it has to be very simple and one verse and very short and brief. So here are some of the steps that I when I reflect, these are some of the steps that I used, and I hope that will inspire you. And at the end of this video, I'll also include some important steps, and I'll also give you some examples of the craft ministry. There are some certain steps that I use, and it will give you some ideas how I actually run it. So important steps. Now, first of all, you have to think about the logistic. What kind of materials or equipment do you need, and how are you going to present the message? Is it at the beginning, middle, during, or after? Now, for example, my typical craft sessions, I would first ask people to introduce themselves. And then after that, I will introduce myself with the testimony and a gospel message, or a message that I prepared that related to the project that I'm presenting. Now, the gospel message that I usually use, called the FOUR, THEFOUR. You can do a search online. It's a very easy 4 symbols tools to share the gospel message. You can basically share the gospel message in 2-3 minutes using the 4 symbols. Another thing, after that, I would actually teach the craft or the workshops. If you would like to see an example about how I do it, you can go to my Facebook page called J's Craft for Jesus. J and the apostrophe S, Craft for Jesus. Now, what about sharing on social medias or other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? That's a great way to share the good news as well. Or another way is start and finish with fun. And this is so important. A lot of times people think we Christians are so boring, and that's the last thing we want. So we want to create a good rapport with the audience, like we're having a party. So oftentimes I would look at reality shows and see how the host actually involves their engaged audience, and that's a great skill to have. Now, the next step is identify what you're going to use to bridge. And I would usually observe and study your audience and look at your own interests as well. How does that click? Like, some of you are more talented in certain things like photography, music, art, and cooking. Now, how are you going to use that to bridge people to the spiritual truth? If not, you're thinking, I'm not talented. You can always go online and find out and learn something new. And to be honest with you, loved the ideas that I've been teaching in my workshops. I never thought of them originally. I always go to online and go to Pinterest, YouTube, and different places to search for ideas. Next, how the truth link. Ask God to give you inspirations. And one thing you can do is take out a piece of paper. Think about the steps that the projects that you're presenting. For example, if you're cooking, let's say you're teaching how to make banana muffin. So you think about the steps that you make banana muffins, and in each step, ask God if there is one thing that could relate it to the truth. So ask God for the inspiration. Based on each step, you don't have to do every single step. So basically the idea is, what are the steps when you're making the muffin, and how is that related to spiritual truth? And lastly, if you plan it out, the steps, and you would write your message and try to keep it simple, not more than 15 minutes of your message. Especially for the unchurched people, keep it very simple. Just pick one verse and share your thought. That's it. And sometimes I would just use my testimony with the gospel message as a way to introduce myself, and that's just an example. Share with you one of the exciting projects that I have done recently, which is God opened another door for me to do something very fun and creative, and it's actually done by Crew Singapore, and they have a creative ministries that they use creativity to share God's word, especially through making short films and videos. I think through this project I've learned how to combine this time really God's truth with crafts, what I'm doing. So I hope you will enjoy this video, and this video would inspire you that maybe in the future this is something that God inspired you to do as well. Enjoy.